Less than a month after the takeover of Afghanistan, the Taliban has announced a caretaker government and declared the country an Islamic Emirate. The new cabinet will be led by Mohammad Hassan Akhund, one of the Taliban's founders. The posts are dominated by those who fought the 20-year battle against US-led forces. With several hardline members of the Taliban named in this cabinet, there are now growing fears for women's rights and the ailing economy. Leone Lakhani has the story.
As Afghans head back to university, female students were segregated from their male peers in some classes. From these images, it's clear the Taliban is back in power.
Regarding the hijab, the Taliban theory should not be taken seriously. Every lady knows how to wear a hijab. In my opinion, the previous tradition in Afghanistan is enough, and I believe that the Taliban should not be serious about the hijab matters.
Since sweeping to power, the Taliban assured women they could go back to school, but in accordance with Islamic law. It's unclear what that means. But the lineup of the new interim government suggests a more hardline approach. At the helm as the acting prime minister is Mohammad Hassan Akhund. He hails from Kandahar, the birthplace of the Taliban, and is on a UN sanctions list. The man in charge of the Interior Ministry is Sirajuddin Haqqani, the son of the founder of the militant Haqqani network. He's on the FBI's most wanted list with a $10 million bounty on his head. The deputy prime minister is Abdul Ghani Baradar, a co-founder of the Taliban who was jailed in Pakistan between 2010 and 2018, but was also instrumental in negotiating the US withdrawal from Afghanistan. There are no women in the cabinet and no one appointed to the post of women's affairs, although many of the positions are still to be filled.
The cabinet will handle the current situation because people are facing poverty and they have other problems. The security situation is now getting better day by day, so that's why we need to focus on the state and we have to serve the people.
But with food and funds running low, frustrations on the street of Afghanistan is building.
Business is also slow. There is peace, but someone should ask the people what their problems are. No one is asking. Before, there would be other people demanding money. Now men wearing turbans claiming to be Taliban are doing the same thing.
The Taliban says it's acting to secure citizens, but the protesters say the chaos in the country is only growing.
The Taliban is very unjust and not human at all. The group doesn't give us the right to demonstrate. They're not Muslims, but infidels.
The international community has so far been cautious.
China has a real problem with the Taliban, so they're going to try to work out some arrangement with Taliban, I'm sure. As does Pakistan, as does Russia, as does Iran. They're all trying to figure out what do they do now. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Here in the United States, the White House says full recognition of a Taliban-led government is still a long way off, while Washington says it's concerned about the track records of some of the people in these government posts. It still expects the Taliban to crack down on any terror groups. Leone Lakhani, TRT World, Washington.
Well, for more on this, let's bring in Aqil Shah in Washington, D.C. He's a South Asia expert and visiting scholar at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. Welcome to the program, Aqil. The Taliban had vowed to build an inclusive government, but so far it's all men. There are no women involved in this cabinet, and all of the people involved are basically established Taliban leaders. It really doesn't look like it's going to be a moderate government for Afghanistan, does it?
Well, it's no surprise that this government is inclusive of all the Taliban factions. So I don't think the Taliban ever earnestly committed to sharing power. They believe or feel that they have conquered Afghanistan by force, and they have no need to share power. So most, as you mentioned, most of the ministers in the cabinet are on the UN blacklists. They're all violent extremists who have fought the US and international forces for over 20 years. So to me, it's not surprising that they have decided to monopolize all power in their own hands.
Let's look at one of those controversial appointees, Sirajuddin Haqqani, leader of the Haqqani network, who has been announced as the acting interior minister. He's on the FBI's most wanted terrorist lists. What will that do for hopes that perhaps the Biden administration might recognize a Taliban administration? I can't imagine that that would be happening anytime soon.
I think it would be very difficult for for the United States or any other power in the region to formally recognize the Taliban, given that they have a globally designated terrorist as their interior minister. It's the equivalent of appointing a global terrorist to run the FBI, basically. So, yes, I don't think the United States or the EU or other important powers who care about international legitimacy, who care about international law, um, would be in any hurry to legitimize a government filled with, terrorists and violent extremists.
In terms of some of the key economic posts, Din Mohammed is acting economy minister. He was minister for planning and higher education during the Taliban's previous rule. Mohammed Idris has been announced as the acting governor of the central bank. He headed the Taliban's Economic Commission, and little is known about Hidayatullah Badri, who's now the acting finance minister. All this to say that the people appointed to these key economic posts have little experience in running a national economy. Or what will that do, or what hopes do you have for Afghanistan's economy, which, as we know, has really suffered not only under 20 years of war, but in the aftermath of the Taliban takeover?
I think you're right. The criteria for the appointment of these individuals is not their education or their experience or their understanding of the economy. Very little is known about their ability or experience to run the economy of a modern state. So all I see is more suffering, more misery for the people of Afghanistan. I mean, the United Nations estimates that over several million people will go hungry soon. There is food shortages. The banking system has come to a halt. So it's really a dismal situation, and I don't think the Taliban have any real understanding of the economic problems that they're facing or will face as they try to consolidate their power.
Okay, Aqil Shah, we'll have to leave it there, but thank you so much again for joining us from Washington, D.C.